I have just sent you request. Please check.
Okay, we're back.
Yes. Hopefully, finger crossed. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am good. So I think I remember that you have a session after that. So probably without wasting much time, let's begin. So hello everyone. Today is the episode 9 of Mind Talkies, and we have with us Miss Amy. She is from Virginia. She is a psychotherapist and an eating disorder specialist. We are so lucky to have you on board with us, Amy, and I can't really thank you enough for taking out time for us from your busy schedule. But I'm pretty sure that everyone out here would love to hear more about you from you. So I would really want you to introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. Yeah, I live in Virginia, and actually, I've only lived in Virginia for the last 2 years. I used to live in Utah, uh, on the west side of the United States. But I've been seeing clients as a therapist since 2004. So it's something that I really love to do, and my specialty is seeing clients with eating disorders, especially within that body image.
Mhm.
It's just a passion of mine, something that I love to do.
Speaking of eating disorder and body image, Amy, first of all, I would really take this opportunity and tell you that I just love your book.
Oh,
I was
good.
I was actually waiting for this session to really happen so that I can really tell you that how much I really love your book. It was so much relatable.
Oh,
It was, I
good.
personally feel that it was a need of an hour. That book actually opened so many things. It actually made me self reflect. It actually made me introspect as well, because there are so many issues, especially when it comes to our body. And I love the way you have talked about how important it is for us to share an amazing relationship with our body. It is so important for us to love our own body, because that is something that is going to be with us for the rest of our lives. Not our own mother or our parents or our friends, also for that matter, who we spend each and every time with, can actually be with us as much as our body is with us. And I
Yeah.
loved how beautifully you have described the different kind of relationship that we share with our body, and it was so much relatable.
Oh, good. I'm just so flattered that you would actually take the time to read it.
So I
Like,
feel I feel that thank God I got in touch with you. I got to read this amazing book. I mean, I have personally recommended that book to each and everyone that I know.
oh, good. I am so glad. I'm glad.
Yeah, because somewhere I feel that everyone around us is actually facing the similar set of beliefs, especially when it comes to the way we are looking. So I think one of the most interesting thing that I read in your book was how important it is for us to understand that there are so many things that our body is already doing, from movements to even physical actions, and the different functions our internal organs are already providing us with. But all we care about is how we are looking.
Yes.
People around us are telling us about how we are looking. So I think that was something which personally made me wonder, and made me rethink, and made me recall about everything, especially when you talked about social media in the second chapter, where you had talked about how important it is for us to be really cautious of the people who are around us and the sort of statements that they're passing. So I
Yeah.
think that is. I mean, I definitely vouch and recommend everyone who will possibly be watching this video to read that book. Do you
Yeah.
do you want to tell me a little bit more about the book? I loved
Um,
it, and I'm going to be your brand ambassador for that book.
I'm just so thrilled to hear from someone that it was helpful for you. Like that means the world to me.
No, it.
And you really described the book really well, that our relationship with our body is probably the closest relationship we're ever going to have lives. And in order to um, be happy with that and be peaceful in that relationship, we actually have to do some work. And we have to be mindful about the messages we're sending ourselves and the messages that we're allowing others to give to us. And so we really do have to work on that and think about that and make that relationship, more peaceful, because it frees us up to then have more peaceful and confident relationships with those around us in our everyday lives.
Right, right. That actually is very important. So actually, you remember, Amy, the last time we spoke, we were talking about what to really discuss about,
Yeah.
especially, where we were struggling, whether to talk about only eating disorder, whether to talk about body image issues. And now, after reading your book, I feel it's important for us to talk about both, because
Okay.
somewhere there's a there's a thin line, and there's a relationship that all of these things, three things that we are going to be talking about in today's session, shares, whether it is about eating disorder, whether it is about the body image as an issue, or it is about the disordered or dysfunctional eating patterns, right? So I think the very first question that I'm going to ask you is, what is body image to you?
Yeah. Body image to me is kind of like we've said, that with our body. It's how we think about our body, how we interact with our body. And sometimes people think body image is just the way you think your body looks, but I do think it is deeper. I think it is more about that relationship with our body.
Mhm. Okay, okay. So, Amy, what I could gather from your book, and of course, the information that I gathered from the literature as well, I understand that body image is a very neutral term. Of course, from your book, I understand that it is mostly the perception that we hold about our own body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be both. It can be positive and negative as well,
Yeah.
right? It can range, from less severe to maybe neutral to dysfunctional or obsessive, or even for that matter, neglectful as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you call a body image as an issue?
How would I call it as an issue?
Yes.
So I would say um, most people, I think, have these problems with their body. I would say most people are not comfortable in their bodies, and so it's very prevalent. And when we can get to a place where it's at least accepting of our body, we don't always love our body right.
Right, right.
Get to that place where we are just a little bit more gentle with our body, a little bit more accepting and understanding of all the things that we are putting our body through and our body is doing for us. I think that is a great place to be, but it's a hard, I think you have to work.
Right. So, Amy, that brings me to my next question. I see that in your book, you have quite a bit highlighted about how important it is for us to attain body neutrality, which is that not loving your body too much and not hating it also too much. How do you think that one can really achieve that?
Yeah, that body neutrality is an important factor. And what I mean by that is that your body is not preventing you from living your life, and your body is not preventing you from doing the things that you believe are important for you to do, like maybe carrying out your life's mission or engaging in things that you're passionate about. If your concern with your body is preventing you from doing that, like maybe not wearing clothes or certain clothes that are required, for those fun activities, or not going out in public, seeing certain people because you're afraid of what they will think about your body, then you're not really truly connected with who you are, not able to be your true self.
Okay, okay, okay. So, like you perfectly mentioned that when you have a negative body image, all of these issues tends to occur where we are trying to hide away ourselves from people around us because we fear being judged, we fear being criticized, right? So what else can really happen when we have this poor sense of body image?
Yeah, poor body image, of course, does lead to poor relationships. But then, kind of like you were saying, it's related to this disordered eating. It's related to eating disorders, and people want to change their bodies, and they think if I change my body, then maybe I will be happy. And so that can lead to, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, extreme dieting, extreme exercising. Um, and as we know, that's problematic. That's really problematic. And a lot of my clients who struggle with eating disorders really did start with not being confident in their body.
Okay, okay, okay. So, what I can really understand is that you have said that you're telling that how a poor body image can really lead to a negative sense of self, whether it is about esteem or whether it is about the entire concept of self, whether it is about our overall mood as well. Because I feel that somewhere poor body image is also closely related to depression and other
Yeah.
mental illness as well. And then one of the major points that I could really extract from what you said is that it actually helps us choosing the negative body image is also directly proportional to the choice of eating habits. Is that
Mm,
correct? Including the disordered way of eating, right? And that
yeah.
actually brings us to what we are going to talk about in today's topic. That is disordered eating patterns versus dysfunctional eating patterns or eating disorders also for that matter. So the very first question that I have is that what is the difference between the two? How can you classify eating disorders versus dysfunctional way of eating? Because I feel that that is something which is happening with everyone because of the stressful environment, whether it is about challenging workplace or wherever that person may be. And stress is also something which is a part of our life, and so is the disordered or dysregulated form of eating pattern. So how would you classify a dysregulated eating pattern from an eating disorder?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it really depends on how how much you're engaging in that disordered eating pattern, how often you're engaging in it, and how much it prevents you from um, doing your regular life. Is it interrupting, your school or your work? Is it making relationships worse? Do you feel like you have to lie about it? A lot of times, when those dysfunctional eating behaviors um, start taking over, it becomes kind of like an addiction in a way that people have to use those dysfunctional behaviors in order to feel normal or to relieve their anxiety. And that's when you start thinking, okay, this is a diagnosis and something that we need to treat.
Okay. And what about eating disorders? How would you classify them? How would you label them? And how would you further let people know about whether or not they're suffering from eating disorder, or whether what they have is a dysregulated eating pattern which can really be worked upon?
Yeah. So I'm gonna answer your second question first, actually, and I will say that even if your dysfunctional eating pattern isn't a full blown diagnosis of an eating disorder, it's probably still not happy for you. You're probably still not living your best life. Like it's still something you would want to get help for. So, with that said, I will say that the typical symptoms of eating disorders are limiting your food intake. So, maybe counting calories, maybe cutting out calories, extreme diet, skipping meals, fasting, all of that. Another symptom is binging. And usually, binge is eating uh, more food in one sitting than someone would normally eat, and maybe really quickly. And usually, binging comes from restricting. So it's kind of a pattern of restrict, 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 and then your body just can't take it anymore. Another symptom of eating disorders would be purging. And purging is, vomiting to lose weight. It could be using laxatives to lose weight. It could be over exercising to lose weight. Any behavior that you engage in to make up for what you've eaten is considered a purge. And so that's another way to know whether you're kind of in that disorder cycle, is if you feel like you have to engage in behaviors to make up for what you have eaten. And then the other thing that goes along with that is over exercising. Sometimes people feel like they have to be in the gym every single day. And if you have anxiety when you miss a day at the gym, that's problematic. Like maybe that's a behavior then that is a negative coping skill for you. And so, restricting, binging, purging, over exercising, and then again, that poor body image comes into play. All of that adds up together to make an eating disorder.
So that actually brings me to the next question. So, having said that, there are these symptoms that one needs to be looking after when they feel that there's something really wrong going on with themselves. And if not them, then maybe people around them can really help them discover. There are three different kinds of eating disorders. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nervosa, then there's bulimia, and then there's binge eating. Right? Mm-hmm. So how would you classify these three separately? So, when we say that, somebody is suffering from anorexia disorder, or
Mm-hmm.
when somebody is suffering from bulimia, how would you classify these three separately? And what are the symptoms that one really needs to look after when it comes to these three disorders?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So anorexia is significant because of rapid weight loss. The typical idea of anorexia is someone who is underweight, who is very thin. At the same time, there are people who can be diagnosed with anorexia who are not underweight because they have had a lot of rapid weight loss in a short amount of time. So their body may not look emaciated and thin, but because they have lost weight so quickly by doing these disordered behaviors, it would still be classified as anorexia. So anorexia is about that rapid weight loss and restriction of food. Bulimia is when someone is caught in a cycle of binging and purging. And so maybe they're eating a big amount of food and then they're throwing up afterwards, or doing other compensatory behaviors. And typically, someone who struggles with bulimia has started with anorexia. Not all the time, but anorexia is such a hard pattern to keep up with year after year after year. Our bodies are sending strong biological signals to eat because our starvation mode, and so a lot of someone will move from anorexia to bulimia. Their body will eat, and so they will feel guilty about it. And so then purge afterwards and try to do something to get rid of that. And then there's binge eating disorder, which is binging without those compensatory behaviors. So they're not purging, but they are binging, and their relationship with food is off in that those binges are that negative coping skill for them when things aren't going well in their life. So those are the three typical categories. But then, most people who have an eating disorder diagnosis are diagnosed with a specified feeding and eating disorder, and kind of this is this diagnosis that there are pieces of all of those things going on, and maybe it doesn't fit neatly to one of those categories, but it is still problematic and it is still an eating disorder. And so most people, when they are getting a diagnosis, will be diagnosed kind of in this other category, but it's still just as serious.
So, Amy, we were discussing about that in today's session, we will certainly be talking about the prevalence of eating disorders. And certainly, you were quite sure that you are aware of the prevalence of eating disorders in states, but you are not very certain about what is the present condition of eating disorders in India. And you will
Yeah.
be quite amazed that even for myself, when I was trying to actually find out a relevant literature work, there isn't any, because
Interesting.
eating is underreported. In
Yeah, I
fact,
bet.
facts that I specifically wanted to discuss with you in today's session, one of them was that people who are suffering from eating disorder might appear to you perfectly ill, yet, might appear to you perfectly healthy, but yet might be extremely ill. Second
Yes.
thing that I fact was that women, as compared to men, were suffering from eating disorders, and they might not even tell it out loud. You can
Yeah.
really see all of that happening with them, but they would never report it, or they wouldn't even go and seek help for that. And the third amazing and amusing thing I would say that I found was that usually people between the age of 15 to 35 certainly have higher chances of developing an eating disorder. So these were
Mhm.
certain things, because somewhere I couldn't really find anything relevant to quote,
Yeah.
and the sort of studies that were done were mostly regional. So it would
In,
really be inappropriate to quote a figure generalizing the entire scenario of eating disorder in India, which otherwise is highly underrepresented. So I personally, I reading your, I seldom, I was just thinking, and I could really associate myself and a lot of people around me, who could really, probably who can possibly relate to every possible thing that you mentioned. And that is a part, I think, of everybody's life. People might deny it, people might avoid it, and people might even go to that extent where they might neglect it as well. You talk about people getting the plastic surgery done just because they are trying to cover up flaws, again talking about the body image. So
right.
somewhere I think that these issues needs to be dealt with, and now that we have really spoken about the different types of eating disorders, how negative body image or disordered or any dysregulated form of eating pattern itself is I don't know if abnormal would be the right word to say, but it definitely demands seeking help. So I would really want to understand, being a certified eating disorder specialist, what kind of treatment do you end up giving to the clients that come to you with a similar set of problems?
Yeah. So when I have a client come to me who is struggling with an eating disorder or disordered eating, we do look at their relationship with food and try to normalize eating. Um, Usually, I recommend that they work with a dietitian. I don't know how common that is in India, um, but working
Pretty common in
pretty
India.
common.
You see every other person going and referring, to a dietitian. So it's pretty common here in India as well.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll have them work with a dietitian, normalize those eating patterns, really look at what that cycle is for them, what the emotions are, why they are coping um, with those emotions in this really trying to find that emotional piece, help them understand that. And then, of course, we work with body image pieces too. So we need to address that relationship with food, the relationship with body, and then sometimes the relationship with people, around you. Have the support that the client needs in order to make this journey in recovery, because it can be very difficult. It's a long road, and having supportive people there um, with you is definitely helpful and also necessary to recover.
Okay. Okay. So, I have a question in my head, which I wanted to ask you. that is that, when you talk about people who are suffering from eating disorders or who have a negative body image, do you think that they have some sort of commonalities, especially when it comes to their personality traits? Maybe the need to please, or avoiding to be criticized, or being self-critical from themselves only. Do you think that they share certain personality traits?
Yeah, sometimes there is a lot of people pleasing, I will call it, and just um, approval from other people, not wanting to do something wrong. Sometimes they will have traits of perfectionism, like just really wanting everything to be perfectly aligned or perfectly in control. Sometimes maybe there's that way to control, um, and depending on the eating disorder, what issues it is. Sometimes the eating disorder is more about finding your own voice separate from maybe parents or something like that, and so it's a way to sometimes rebel or sometimes show that you're different from the family you're growing up in. But there are just kind of these common traits, as you say, that do um, that you do find very easily across the board with eating disorders.
Right, right. So, Amy, I have somebody here who was asking a question.
Oh,
So this person is asking that how can one deal with negative comments people pass on our body?
how can you deal with negative comments that people give you? That's kind of one of those things that you have to build up your own strength within and understand that even if someone doesn't like how you look, it doesn't mean that you are a bad person. Good people come in all shapes and sizes. Um, Good people come in all colors, and
Right,
you can be a good person. You can do good things. You can help others, no matter what your body looks like. And it's sad that people make negative comments on bodies all the time. And with social media, it's like so often people are just critical of how people look. And hopefully we can kind of step outside of that and understand, if someone else is critical of your body, it probably means that they have issues. They're probably not really um, put together themselves. They probably have body image issues. They probably have insecurities as well. And so being able to find that strength within to kind of out is hard, but it's possible and it's necessary.
right, right. So, Amy, I probably will ask you one last question. That, if we were to help people by building a positive body image, I see that you have recommended so many things, from loving your own self, taking care of your own self, placing yourself first before anyone else. Even if people are being critical about you, it's very important that you begin to value yourself more. And I remember that you talked about how important it is for us to temporarily cut down from social media, from people, and for that matter, start concentrating on yourself. Start accepting yourself fully. And even if you have like 10 people, so one of the best thing that I loved out of so many exercises that you had recommended people, is to create a list of haters, supporters, and there was one more column. I forgot the column.
I think it's like undecided, like maybe you
Yes,
didn't know.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So undecided. So I think that is something that people can definitely do it, where they can create their own list, where they can actually take some time. Because I personally feel that social media, or probably the social environment, as you have specifically talked about in your book, I feel that has really a majority of the role to play in terms of how we look at ourselves. And
Mm.
somehow we as human beings are so much involved in the world around us than we are involved with how we are feeling from inside. So
Yeah.
I think that was the most important takeaway from today's session, is that how important it is for people to love themselves and to love their body.
Yeah. It's interesting that you brought up that exercise, because that's another way to deal with those negative comments, right? So if there's somebody in your life who is constantly criticizing your body, you need to have strong boundaries with that person. Sometimes if it's your relative or, a close relative, you can't always like cut them out completely, but you can build stronger boundaries with that person. If it's somebody on social media, just block them, right? Like there are ways to do that. And hopefully people will follow you and me on social media,
Right.
because we're not going to be criticizing, other people's bodies. But if there are people on your social media, like, that you feel like is negative for your body image, it's okay to block them or unfriend them, or, whatever you need to do to set those boundaries.
Again, bringing back the question that I asked you in the end, that why does it really happen that we have this sense? Because I remember while I was discussing about your book with a couple of my own friends, they kept on talking about that this is how the human society is, that sometimes we do not like, for example, I'll give you a short example of a short situation, that there's a friend of mine, and he is a little plump, right?
Mm.
And we mostly end up telling you that you should really lose weight, because you might develop some other kind of diseases, which is highly common. People are more vulnerable. They are a little overweight, they are more vulnerable to develop other kinds of diseases. So I think it's very important for, I mean, you as well, that to actually help people understand that what sort of negative comments are not acceptable, and
Yeah.
what sort of comments are supposed to be taken in a positive way. When somebody is telling you to lose weight because you might develop a certain sort of a disease, right, versus somebody who is commenting on your weight in a negative manner. So I would really want to, for myself also, gain a little bit of clarity, that negative comment also, that how can we really differentiate between the two?
Yeah. So I would say that the way someone keeps their body is their business. If they are, plump, as you put it, are fat, it's no business about their health. What if their health is bad? It doesn't mean that they are a bad person. There are plenty of thin people who have poor health. Health isn't 100% under our control.
Yeah.
We cannot possibly control all the factors that might make us well or unhealthy. And being unhealthy also does not make us a bad person.
That's
And
true.
so, what if someone is fat and they have type 2 diabetes? That does not mean they're a bad person. I have people in my life who struggle with type 2 diabetes, and I have people in my life who don't have perfect health, and they're wonderful, and I love them, and I don't want to change them. I'm just like, thank you for being here.
In fact, this actually brings me to a point where I wanted to discuss with you this particular thing, that you talked about, that how fat people are generally the ones who are discriminated, and people have developed this sort of a prejudice, or sort of a notion in their head that they're good for nothing,
Yeah.
right? Not be able to get success in life, right? Uh, this personality theory that I would really want to probably share. I don't know how many people can really relate to it, but then it is actually it has been actually studied, and it has been claimed that people who have a round figure are generally the ones who are most lovable, and
Oh,
they are the ones who are, yes, yes, yes. So I think it's a personality theory by Sheldon. So he has very beautifully described that the sort of body type that you have is actually directly proportional to the sort of traits, the personality traits. And he has basically emphasized on how people who are round in shape are the ones who are very outgoing, they are very cute is the word, and they're highly lovable, and they're friendly as compared to different body types. So I think this was something which definitely people should really understand, and they should start loving their body. They should start taking care of themselves, and they should completely block any sort of a negative comments that is coming to them from the external world. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you would probably want to say in the end, or a strategy that you would really want to recommend, or a takeaway that you would really want to give it to people?
Um, yeah, one thing that I would say is that it's kind of up to us to change our society and change our culture. I think sometimes it's easy for people to say, well, our culture is fat phobic, so I should make sure I'm thin so that my culture will accept me. And I say, how about we be the change? How about we learn how to have positive body image or even body neutrality, like we talked about earlier. And how about we pass that on to future generations, that we can be the change? I can pass that on to my children. I can pass it on to the younger generation I work with. And then they can pass that on, and things will change. Things can be different. And it at least will make a difference for those children that I interact with. And that small change, I think, can still be meaningful.
That's true. But one of the major concern that I personally have is that people are very hesitant. They are
Mhm.
very hesitant to speak about such issues. I feel that I'm pretty sure that there must be so many people out there who must be who are being criticized for the way they look, for the way they are, right? And somehow, I don't know whether it is neglect, or whether they themselves are too ashamed, whether there's a guilt or a shame that they suffer from, that actually makes them a little reluctant to talk about. I'm pretty sure that all of these things that you've mentioned in the book is pretty true, and I think this is something that everyone can relate to, not just a person who is fat, but also a person who is thin.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes we might not have a perfect hair day, or maybe my skin is looking a little dull today. Maybe I should not really go out for a party, and
Hmm.
this is something which is a part of our daily life.
Yeah.
How do you advise people to take a step forward and come out of it, and probably even to discuss about it, because sometimes all of this requires is just a mere discussion.
Yeah. I hope that people can step outside of their shame and embarrassment and be able to talk about these issues and get help for the serious issues. They can actually um, seek help and make those changes. Like you said, I don't think people are going to um, talk about it until they feel like they have permission. They understand that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I think that's one reason that I wrote the book, is that I'm hoping to reach people who maybe don't want to talk about it but would feel comfortable reading a book about it. And that will kind of help them warm up to this topic and be able to then maybe someday be more open about that with others on their journey.
Yes, I think I personally would recommend that book to everyone that I know personally who must be slightly also dealing with an issue like that, because like I told you before as well, that in India we are still to take that step where we want people to approach for help, because the first step is realization, and sometimes that's the thing which is missing, where
Yes.
people, they feel that it's a part of life. That's how it is supposed to be. There's validation all over the world from everyone around us. Be it, am I looking good? Yes, you are looking good. Am I looking bad? Yes, you are looking bad. So I think the validation itself is present everywhere. So it's very important that people start to realize that what is it that is causing a negative impact, and what can really lead to a positive impact. So I
Yes.
think that I'm going to probably end the session. I am pretty sure that people will certainly have questions, and I'm going to get back to you with a lot of questions, because that's what happens with us, that we generally get a set of questions, and I'll probably send you all of those questions, and then hopefully to everyone who will be viewing our video, um, that I'll pass on these questions to her, and then let's see
Yeah.
how you.
yeah, I would love to answer any questions that people have. I would love to get back and check in with that.
Yes. So thank you so much, Amy, for taking out time and coming on board with us. It was lovely speaking to you as always, and I hope that we stay in touch and
Yes. It's getting a
yes,
little bit.
I lost you. I'm so sorry. So if you intend to launch the part two of the book, I am definitely looking forward to read it. And thank you so much.
Awesome.
So
Thank you. I loved being on here.
yes, same here. Thank you so much for your time, Amy. Have a good day ahead.
Yes, you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.